Hi, my name is Hayley Argent and I am one of the senior occupational therapists here in CDNT 5 in Bray. You are very welcome to our occupational therapy parent talk focusing on the independent skills of feeding and dressing. This talk has been prepared by the OTs in CDNT 5 Bray. Following attendance at this parent webinar, we hope you will feel empowered and more equipped with strategies for teaching independent skills, strategies to support dressing skills, and strategies to support feeding and cutlery skills. The following is an overview of what we will cover today. Firstly, what is occupational therapy? Then we will look at the match approach and SMART goals. We will then focus on the development of motor skills. Following this, we will look at teaching strategies and tips for undressing and dressing both the lower and the upper body, shoes and socks, zips, buttons and laces, feeding, and finally some problem solving. But first, what is occupational therapy? Occupational therapists, or OTs, work with children and adults of all ages. For the purpose of today's presentation, we will be focusing on occupational therapy for children and young people. Our role is to enable the child or young person to be able to participate in age-appropriate occupations or functional tasks. These tasks are often categorised as self-care activities, such as dressing, eating, toileting, etc., preschool and school activities, such as writing and concentrating, and finally play and leisure activities, such as playing in the playground or accessing local activities in the community. Occupational therapy intervention can focus on the child's motor, sensory and perceptual skills, but can also involve assessing and adapting the task and the environment. The match approach is a framework we can use when planning intervention or supporting a child to achieve their goals, and it is underpinned by 5 main principles. Modify the task. Change aspects of an activity that are too difficult. For example, use Velcro instead of laces. Alter your expectations. Consider what the ultimate goal of an activity is and be flexible. Can you focus on one thing at a time? For example, your child's goal could be to independently remove their trousers before focusing on being able to put them on. Teaching strategies. Investigate alternate teaching strategies for children with special needs. We are all different and therefore we can respond differently to different techniques. Some examples are using visuals, verbal prompts, supporting the child to problem solve through guided discovery and education. Change the environment. Minimise the environmental factors that would make performance difficult for the child. Is your child trying to put their shoes on while sitting on the floor? Would sitting on a small step make the task easier? Help by understanding the nature of the difficulties. This will help you and your child to problem solve. Observe your child trying to complete the task. What aspect is difficult for them? Often the children we work with may not be able to achieve independence within the age norms, which is why it is so important that the goals we set are SMART and are informed by activity analysis. SMART goals are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. An example of a SMART goal could be that Sophie will be able to use a spoon to feed herself a yogurt when sitting in a supported position at the table. Sophie will achieve this goal in 8 weeks' time. Another example of a SMART goal is Tom will be able to fasten and unfasten the buttons on his school shirt by the end of the winter term. Our motor skills develop on a continuum, and Mary Sheridan's book, Childhood Development from Birth to 5 Years, outlines the acquisition of skills, including motor skills, across childhood. Gross and fine motor skills develop together, and we need stable gross motor skills to be able to perform controlled fine motor skills. Gross motor skills are the larger movements of the arms, the legs, the feet, or the entire body, such as crawling, running, and jumping. Fine motor skills are smaller actions, such as grasping an object between the thumb and a finger, such as a pen or a button. Motor skills develop together. But why do we need fine motor skills? Fine motor skills are very important for using tools at home, for example, cutlery, for using tools at school, for example, scissors, rulers, or pencils, and to manage self-care, for example, doing up buttons and zips, and cleaning your teeth. But what do we need to develop independent skills? We also need core stability, This helps us to maintain postural control, and it's a stable base from which our arms and legs move efficiently. If we have weak core muscles, we use more energy trying to keep our body upright. This leads to fatigue, poor posture, and lower concentration. Think of a crane on a building site. If the body of the crane is unstable, then the hook at the end of the arm is not going to be able to do its job. To experience what this might feel like, at home you could try and shift your weight onto one side of your bottom, lift your feet off the floor, then write your name, or complete another fine motor task. This should show you how difficult it is to concentrate on fine motor tasks and maintaining your position at the same time. Motor planning is the ability to conceive, organise and carry out a sequence of unfamiliar actions. Children with motor planning difficulties often appear clumsy and slow to initiate and learn new play activities, and they can struggle with activities such as dressing, cutlery and sports. Difficulty with organising prompts and carrying them out can also be observed, and our cognitive and thinking skills play a big part in skill acquisition. Bilateral coordination and midline crossing is also important. Bilateral coordination is the ability to use both sides of the body together in a smooth, simultaneous and coordinated manner. We have two types of bilateral coordination. Firstly, symmetrical. Both hands or sides of the body are carrying out the same movement patterns, for example clapping, or using handlebars to steer a bike. Asymmetrical is when you're using two hands or sides of the body for different functions, for example, using a knife and fork, or using your legs to pedal a bike. Bilateral coordination contributes to the establishing of a dominant hand and also the ability to cross the midline. The midline is an imaginary line drawn vertically down, dividing the body into two equal parts. The ability to use each limb or eye on both sides of the body is demonstrated with midline crossing. We need midline crossing for fine and gross motor skills, and in fact we need all of these skills for fine and gross motor skills. We also need body awareness, or proprioception. Proprioception is the information received via our joints, muscles and skin, and it provides information about where the limbs are in space without using our vision. It will also influence moving in space and around objects. Sometimes your child may appear clumsy. Having difficulties with body awareness can also make achieving independence with dressing, eating, writing and gross motor skills much more difficult. Sensory integration. If we aren't accurately registering or integrating the sensory information from the world around us, we will not be able to respond appropriately and complete effective motor actions. For example, we might observe too much or too little force during fine motor activities. Strength. We need sufficient strength in our muscles to be able to carry out certain tasks. Stable joints. Hypermobility can affect the child's ability to complete the task. And finally, motivation. Motivation is so important. Your child needs to understand what goal they are working on and why it is important. We must consider what the ideal sitting posture is for task completion, and this very much depends on the task. But for a tabletop activity or for an activity where your child needs a stable base, the 90-90-90 position is recommended. This is where your feet are flat, your bottom is back, and your forearms can be comfortable on the table or at the task. There is a suggestion from some experts that sitting posture can be improved by having your hips slightly higher than the knees. When we start to teach the task, using backwards chaining can be a helpful approach to enable successful goal acquisition. In backward chaining, the parent or SNA or other caregiver can complete most of the task and the child performs the last step. This way, the child then gains the positive reinforcement when they have successfully completed the task. For example, a parent or caregiver can complete steps 1 to 5, and the child should then complete step 6. When the child is fully comfortable completing step 6, he should then progress on to completing steps 5 and 6, and so on. The aim of backward chaining is for the parent or caregiver to be doing less and less, and for the child to be continually growing more and more independent. The child should always complete the final step of the task. In order to do backwards chaining, we have to do a task analysis first. When we use the backward chaining approach, it can lead to positive reinforcement for the child, as they are the ones achieving success at the end of the task. Now it's time to become a detective. Go slowly. There are often more steps than you realise, So completing a task analysis can really help to identify what your child needs to work on. You can't work on all the different aspects of the task at once. Use your task analysis to identify which goal to start with, ensuring that your goal is SMART. For example, start with taking off trousers before putting on. Start with unbuttoning before buttoning. Analyse the task as you complete the task yourself first, before trying to support your child to learn the new skill. Choose one task, carry out the task yourself, break down the skill into specific steps, write each step down, and even take a picture of each step for your child to observe. Organisation is key. This is a skill that some people naturally have and others don't. If your child finds dressing difficult, you may want to help them to organise their clothes to make the process easier. Labelled boxes or drawers can be helpful, and putting outfits together for days of the week can also make the task less daunting. If your child finds this stressful, you could choose one day per week to plan the clothes together and organise into a wardrobe clothing organiser or similar. You must choose whatever method works for you and your child. Some children respond really well to motivators, and this can be a helpful tool when encouraging goal achievement. Make sure to start small and work towards a bigger reward. Also, it's really important that your child understands what goal they're working on, why it's important, and what reward they're working towards. Make an agreement with your child and communicate it clearly so you both know what the plan is. Consistency is key. Consideration should be given to who teaches your child. If a child is taught the same skill by different people in different ways, it could be confusing for your child and make progress more difficult to achieve. For example, there are many different ways to learn how to remove your jumper. Some people pull at the back of the neck and remove overhead. Some people remove one arm first and then the other before removing the clothing over their head. Others cross their arms and grab the bottom of the jumper and pull upwards overhead. This inconsistency could potentially make goal achievement more difficult and lead to additional frustration for your child. Make sure you practice with similar equipment at the same time of day, using the same strategies, using similar types or styles of clothing at first until your child becomes a little more accomplished. Think about your child's position when completing the task, whether that is handwriting, cutlery, or getting dressed. Some positions work differently for different tasks, but your child's position can have a significant impact on the task and skill achievement. For example, would it be easier to get dressed sitting on a soft bed or sitting on a firm stool or chair? Think about the options of sitting in a corner or leaning against a wall, which can provide stability and boundaries. Being seated and having the child's feet raised on something solid can help them to reach without losing their balance. And finally, being behind the child, so sitting your child on your knee or in front of you, can give them physical support and practical support, and also gives them a clear view from the correct visual start point of the task being completed.